Welcome to this special edition of Price Know-How Snippets with a specific focus on tariffs and the potential impact that they may have. In a broad sense, tariffs are not, generally speaking, very good for the economy. And I think we saw that sort of fairly recently with share price fluctuation, and we've seen it also fairly recently with oil price dropping. But I'm going to talk in a general sense about the effect that these tariffs are likely to have on the global polyethylene industry, how it's going to affect trade flows, and the potential impact that it's going to have for us within the UK, within our own industry. Tariffs cause disruption, and I think what we've seen is, major blocks. So the USA, China, and the EU, it's causing disruption, it's causing uncertainty. This is a very different talk to the one I was going to give a week ago, at the point where Trump decided to do the 90-day pause. So we do have a little bit of clarity, we've got a little bit more certainty, and we can sort of order with more security that we're not going to be facing 25% tariffs on US imports of polyethylene at this stage. What is going to continue to be a destabilizing factor is the trade war between the USA and China, which shows signs of escalation and getting worse with 100% plus tariffs. We've been in this position before where the US and China have been in a trade war, and polyethylene was affected. China imposed 34% tariffs on US polyethylene back in 2017 in Trump's first term. However, what they did was they did a lot of waivers. So they gave concessions to reduce the tariff to 6.5% in line with global values. And what we saw in 2017 was China buying somewhere in the region of about 800,000 tons of ethylene-derived products. And when I say ethylene-derived products, I mean principally things like LLDPE, HDPE, but also ethylene glycol and ethylene in its raw form. So 2017, 800,000 tons. And through the trade war, it grew. And up until 2023, it hit 4 million. So you saw significant growth in the exports of US ethylene derivatives into China. Dropped slightly in 2024 to 3.6 million tons, still a significant amount of volume. And that's the issue with this trade war, that material is essentially now going to go somewhere else. China can be a lot more confident in its stance because it's now a lot more self-sufficient, certainly in areas of LLDPE and HDPE. It's got a lot more capacity. So Exxon, one of our principal partners, they have a new plant producing LLDPE, HDPE in China around about 1.5 million tons a year. So China's got a lot more capacity itself. So this volume, this 4 million tons, has got to go somewhere else. So the USA is going to be looking to export to other regions, so parts of Southeast Asia, but also into Africa, maybe into Latin America. This is going to disrupt the flow of polyethylene around the world as they look for new markets that are already quite well supplied. So in addition to trade flows moving, we're going to have issues with shipping. Now, it's under review, but the USA is also imposing a $1.5 million tax every time a Chinese-made ship docks at a US port. That's going to potentially impact the number of ships that are willing to dock at US ports, willing to collect the cargoes and willing to bring them into other markets. So we're going to see some disruption to the trade flows, certainly in the short term. So you may see that we've got spikes of shortages and we can't get exactly what we want when we want it. Thinking specifically about the UK, thinking specifically about the EU, we are to a certain extent dependent on US imports, certainly for some of the very specialist grades of LLDPE, and we're going to continue to need to buy those. With the suspension of the tariffs, it does look like retaliation from the EU and the UK is not going to happen immediately, but it may happen at some point in the future. So there is still some uncertainty surrounding it. The likelihood in the medium to long term is that we're probably going to see more exports of US polyethylene to the UK and to Europe because we're a market where they can send it, and provided that we can get it tariff-free, it's going to become a cost-effective option. Couple that with the dropping oil price, that's going to cause drops in the cost of ethylene. It's going to drive the raw materials for polyethylene down. So overall, we should be seeing in the coming months, a few spikes notwithstanding because of supply chain glitches, you should generally see prices softening because there's more availability, more competition. So overall, tariffs, a bit destabilizing, not great. However, when it comes to the overall polyethylene market, you're likely to see that this is going to offer you some price reductions. We're here to help you manage this disruption, so please talk to us about how we can satisfy your needs. Thanks very much.